Almost every stream I get the question of, is normal mode Chiropac any good for money? This is because at the moment I am doing a lot of Chiropac on my main account to try and get myself my first drop, and then also when I'm doing Chiropac on my alt account to try and get myself a Great Concentrated Blast Codex, it is asked all the time. It's a question that people aren't sure about and I don't know the answer to with complete certainty. So what I'm going to do in this video today is test Chiropac normal mode, but also the Glacial normal mode as well with high level gear, and then also bringing our gear down a step to average gear to see how much we can make each hour at each boss. That way we can get a pretty decent understanding of what to expect, and I can answer this question a lot better. So hopefully we'll also provide you guys with the information you need to know whether you want to commit to these bosses or not in normal mode, where it's nice and easy to get through the kills and make yourself a good amount of money, or whether it's other things you can do in game that'll be better. So either way, I hope you enjoy this video. Do leave a like if you do, subscribe to the channel if you are new around here, and let's find out if these bosses are any good. Okay, so we're going to start off with Chiropac normal mode, and we are going to be using this in high level gear. We're going to be using my best slot gear that I have, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to, as fast as we possibly can, see how much money we can make in that time, and then afterwards we will do it in lower level gear as well and make the comparison. Now, what I'm going to do is basically ignore any chance at getting a rare drop here and just look at the regular loot, and then we'll talk about the fact that you can still get that rare drop to add on to the end. This is because I want to know how much you will expect to get every time you go there, meaning just the regular loot, as you are not going to expect to get a drop or like a codex or anything like that at Chiropac or at our Glacial when we get there each and every hour. So we're just going to take a look at the regular loot for each time that we do it, and then we'll talk about the fact that we also got this and this, whatever extras we do get, and then you can take those into consideration for yourself. That being said, for the high level gear, I do have my Staff of Armadillo, I will be using my Grimoire, and I will be using a Calgarian Demon as well. I'm also going to use Maniacal for each and every instance in this, as I think keeping that consistent is definitely going to be important. I will be using Weapon Poison, and I will be using any extra things that I can think of, except for Incense Sticks, to be able to increase my damage here and get faster kills. It's also important that I mention that while I'm doing the high level kills, I will be deducting 6 million GP from the actual profits. This is because the upkeep and actual use of running this setup is probably slightly over 6 mil as well. So we're going to be a little bit generous. However, Grimoire is incredibly expensive, so we are going to take away 6 million GP, and even then, that's still pretty generous. However, this will be interesting to find out whether having the 6 million GP taken away affects it in a way that just makes it absolutely not worth doing. Will we get faster kills through using the Grimoire to the point where we make plenty of money back? Or is it going to end up being just pointless, way too much money, and probably not worth using? I'm kind of going towards the latter, but we'll see what happens. That being said, I can tell you guys that I did get a Great Concentrated Blast while you're doing this Chiropac normal mode, so that is actually pretty damn good for me. However, like I said, we are going to keep that separate from the loot, and I will mention the fact that, you know, you can actually get that as well, but of course don't expect it every time. Okay, so for the high level gear at Chiropac normal mode, we managed to get ourselves 14 million GP in regular loot. With the 6 million GP taken away, that leaves us with 8 million GP profit, which is actually not too bad, I suppose. Not too bad whatsoever. Then adding on the troves that I opened, that pushed us up to 17.8 mil. However, that was including the Pernix Quivers, which again, you can't expect to get every time. So personally, considering you will always get these chests if you have the upgraded ring, I would probably put this up to about 15 million GP, as that seems like a safer bet to do. That brings the profit to 9 million GP, and not to mention, we did get the Great Concentrated Blast, which of course is going to put our profits way ahead. So even though the profits did go down by 6 million GP, having the access to be able to actually kill way more bosses per hour is probably going to give you the chance of getting the rare more as well, so definitely something to consider. So taking into consideration that we are not looking at rares and you are looking at the same amount of gear cost as me per hour, about 6 million GP, then you can expect to get around about 9 million GP per hour doing this in high level gear. Moving on from there, we are going to go to Chiropac in low level gear to keep it nice and tidy, and I can tell you that from this we are going to be using Ganodermic Armor, the Swear Elder Wand and Orb. I have some pretty basic perks on my gear, nothing overly expensive. I am going to be using Animate Dead because it makes life way easier, which means eventually I'll save money, seeing as I'm not going to be eating anywhere near as much food. I am going to use a Ripper Demon here, because Ripper Demon without the Staff of Armadillo is probably going to be the best bet. I will use Scrolls, but I will not use Spiritual Prayer Potions. and I will be sticking to Maniacal. The gloves that I have are Cinderbane gloves, as the weapon poison will be incredibly useful. I do understand that Cinderbane gloves aren't incredibly cheap, however this isn't a budget setup, this is just going for a decent setup, an average setup that overall isn't going to cost an absolute fortune to get. Basically, not best in slot gear, just average level gear. I will be camping a Look of the Dwarves, and I will be using a Ring of Vigor for a switch. I won't be using any of my other rings to get through this fight. I've also changed my spell from using Insight Fear to using Exsanguinate, as it is cheaper, and there's no real reason for me to use Insight Fear at this point because, well, I just don't really need to use Tsunami. The book that I'm using is a Book of Jazz, which is incredibly cheap to run, and so for this setup I'm going to use a gear cost or a upkeep cost of around about 1 million GP per hour, and I will do the exact same for the Arc Glacial as well, as that will be in the same gear as you see here. Okay, so coming to the end of the Chiropractor normal mode, you can see that I got around about 8.8 million GP in regular loot. Once I opened the chest, this went up to 9.2 million GP, and I didn't get a rare while doing this normal mode, as I did get less kills per hour than, of course, when I was doing the higher level gear, but also the RNG just didn't work. Like, I couldn't really expect to get another codex or anything, so that's why we're just going to leave those out anyway. Okay, so if we are taking off 1 million GP profit, they are taking that away from the 9.2 million GP, as I think that's pretty fair, as I didn't get any permanent quivers with this. The chests were pretty average loot, there was nothing incredibly special with them, so I would say that's pretty good. 9.2 million GP, take away the 1 million for the profit, or the cost, sorry, that is going to leave us with 8.2 million GP of actual profit from here. Considering this is low level gear and it costs way less to run, it is only 800,000 coins less than what we got with the Chiropractor high level. However, again, you have more kills per hour as the high level, and I did get a Greater Concentrated Blast. And of course, getting more kills in those hours definitely increases your chances of getting that, but it's still not going to be guaranteed. So only 800,000 behind in regular loot once you consider the costs of the actual first setup. So that's not too bad whatsoever, to be honest. You're still making a pretty similar amount of money. So with that one being done, let's move to the Glacial on high level. Next up, we are moving to the Arc Glacial in high gear. Again, this is the exact same setup as I used for my Chiropractor, so it is no different in any way whatsoever. So we're going to use the same 6 million GP cost there, and other than that, it is just going to be seeing how much we can get out of here. So the kills here took a little bit longer, as the boss is a pain in the ass, and there's a lot of mechanics that time gate your kill. So as well as the fact that if you do too much damage, the kill is literally just time gated because you get reduced damage dramatically. Then you also end up getting the arms, or you end up getting the beams that push you out of the way, or all the sort of stuff that does increase the actual time that it takes to kill the boss sometimes. That being said, at the end of this, I did manage to get around about 9.7 million GP in regular loot. Once we'd opened the chest, this went up to 10.1 million GP, which is fine. We'll keep that as our normal loot because that's pretty average and pretty low. And from then on, we also got 2 Leng artifact drops. Now let me tell you, in normal mode, these Leng artifact drops, the same drop rate as the books. Had I got 2 books, that would have been about 180 million GP in 1 hour. Insane. But instead, of course, I got 2 Leng artifacts. I believe these are my third and my fourth ones of these, so that's pretty good. Anyway, looking at this, because this is the high level one, we are going to need to take away 6 million GP from the 10.1 mil, which actually leaves us with 4.1 million GP profit from doing the high level Glacial. Not that good, right? Pretty low. Had I got 2 books though, would have been ridiculously high. So I'm pretty certain that as for just common drops, the Glacial is probably not worth using everything like Grimoire and all that sort of stuff here in normal mode. But let's take a look at the low level stuff. But just to confirm that was 4.1 million GP in actual profit once we take away our costs. Alright, low level gear at Glacial in normal mode, actually not quite as bad to be fair. So we ended up with 7.3 million GP in regular loot, which isn't too bad whatsoever. The chests we got quite lucky with, and this pushed us up to 10.7 million GP. So we're not going to include all those permanent quivers. We'll probably put our price up to around about 8 million GP, just to round it up a little bit, as you are going to be guaranteed these chests. So you could still make more, or you could be making less. So 8 million GP, I think, from 7.3 is a pretty good, I guess, and a fair amount to get. Not to mention, we also got 1 Dark Nihilus as well, which is pretty good considering, you know, you can use these, you can save these up and use them in hard mode once you get there later on. So this does kind of add to the value, whereas we are still ignoring rares, so don't worry about that for this one. That being said, we are taking 1 million GP profit from this, and we said we're going to go to about 8 mil. That means we have about 7 million GP profit from the normal mode with low gear, which is actually higher than the one in high gear. So that's pretty interesting. That being said though, had those 2 lane drops, or had even just one of those lane drops been a book, which is the same drop rate, then we would have made a absolute ton more. So having the faster kills probably would help with that a little bit, especially since we got 2 of those, which is incredibly lucky and unlucky at the same time. However, we're not looking at the rare drops, so that is okay. We'll just discard those to the side. However, we did make 7 million GP profit at this boss in this hour. Considering how low level this boss actually is, even with all mechanics on, to get this amount of money, I do still think that this is a pretty good way to go, as it has really low costs, and 7 million hours is still pretty damn good. Okay, so this is where we come to the end, where I talk about the comparison on how it kind of looks together. So we'll start off with the high level. As a high level, you can go to Chiropractor and you can expect around about 9 million GP without looking at any rares whatsoever. Also, keep in mind this is using magic with Insight Fear and using a grimoire as well. There will probably be some extra costs in that. The cost that I used for this was pretty generous, so it may even drop down a little bit more than that. It'll depend whether you are efficient with toggling on and off your grimoire when you finish kills and stuff, whether you leave it running the whole time, as it won't actually be running for the full hour, so you won't have to pay a full hour's worth of grimoire cost, as when you're banking, of course, it should probably be off. That being said, you will likely not need any food whatsoever, so from there on out, it's pretty much just rune costs. So there is a 9 million GP profit that I've managed to get from the care pack at high level. Glacial at high level, I managed to get myself a 4.1 million GP profit because the loot didn't come out anywhere near as high as it did at care pack. That being said, I did get 2 lane drops, so you need to keep in mind the fact that the book from here is definitely more expensive than the Great Concentrator Blast Codex at care pack as well. So had I managed to get myself one of those books rather than the Greater Concentrator Blast, then this would have technically been better. But if you're here for log, then hey, at least you're still turning a profit. Now for the bit that I'm sure most people will be looking at, the best way to actually make money from these bosses in lower level gear. Chiropractor as low level gear gave a 8.2 million GP profit, and the Glacial in low level gear gave a 7 million GP profit. So Chiropractor, as far as I can tell, will definitely be the best place to go for this in the consistency of profit wise. However, the book again is more expensive from the Art Glacial, and there is only 1 million GP profit difference between Chiropractor and the Glacial. So I don't think there's a massive difference between these 2 bosses in overall profit. What I would do in your situation probably is pick the boss that you enjoy doing the most, or bounce between them, because if you bounce between them, then at least that way you're enjoying it a little bit more, especially if you enjoy both bosses. If you hate the Glacial like me, maybe don't even bother with it. But overall, you can still get the Dark Nihilus from here. You can still get the Leng thing, which is absolutely worthless. Or of course, you could get the book, and as a person with low level gear, getting one of those books would be a massive difference. Chiropractor does come with its benefits as well, though, with the Greater Concentrator Blast thing. However, the Jazz book is slightly less profit as well, and the wrist wraps are pretty much like a Leng drop. There's just absolutely not that good. But either way, it is still a good boss to do, and it is more profit per hour. So, with that all being said, we can come to the conclusion that it is around about 8 million GP per hour for killing Chiropractor in normal mode, and it is around about 7 million GP profit per hour killing the Art Glacial in normal mode in lower level gear. If you were in high level gear and you didn't use a grimoire, maybe use a Jazz book for example, you could probably save a lot of profit on there and end up with a good chunk more. It is also very important to keep in mind that if you are killing a lot more of these bosses every hour, your chance of actually getting a drop increases dramatically too, which could increase your overall profit per hour, but we ignored the rares in this to kind of figure out how much you would be able to expect if you didn't get any luck whatsoever. Alright, so with that all being said, that is where I'm going to call this video here for today. Hopefully you found some useful information here. Hopefully you've figured out which boss you may want to go and kill. I think personally I would probably just do Chiropractor myself, but I don't like the Glacial, so I'm a bit biased with that. Let me know in the comments which boss you may want to do if you are going to do so. Otherwise, thank you so much to the channel members for the extra support. You guys are absolutely incredible. Your names are on screen right now, of course. Otherwise, thank you everybody for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope you found some value, and I will see you all in the next one. See you later, guys.